I turned 28 this year, and lately, when I end up in a lobby on Call of Duty with someone who's 19 or 20, or I see a 20-year-old post online about how overwhelmed and paralyzed they are, I get this very specific, heavy feeling in my chest. Because I remember being 20. For me, that was back in 2018. It feels like an absolute lifetime ago, mostly because the world I was 20 in doesn't even exist anymore. If you are 20 years old right now, in 2026 you are navigating a landscape that is hostile to your existence. And the most infuriating part of this experience is that all of the advice you are being given by your parents, by university counsellors, by these souped up hustle culture gurus online is obsolete. It is leftover scraps from an economy and a social contract that burned to the ground while we were all distracted. They're handing you a map for a city that has already been paved over. And when you eventually get lost, when you inevitably feel exhausted, broke, and stuck, they have the nerve, the gall to tell you it's your fault for not reading the map right. No one else wants to say it, so I'm going to. If you feel like you are drowning at 20, you aren't failing. You aren't lazy. You don't lack a Sigma grind set. The system is just rigged. The game has been patched. The difficulty slider cranked to the maximum, and all the cheat codes the older generations use to build their comfortable lives have been permanently removed. If I was 20 again right now, today I would do everything differently. Because the biggest mistake I made, and the biggest mental trap I see young people falling into right now, is trying to play by the old rules, hoping that if you just suffer enough, you will eventually be rewarded. Newsflash, you won't. Here is exactly how I would rewrite the script if I had to start over in 2026. Starting with the timeline we all have, growing up, we were all indoctrinated into this very rigid, specific timeline. It was the golden contract. You graduate high school at 18, you go to college and figure out your life. You graduate at 22 and land a good entry-level job. You meet a long-term partner by 24. You get promoted, save up, and buy a starter home by age 26 or 27. You settle down, you win. That was the blueprint. But look at the reality of 2026. You're being asked to take on crippling student loan debt to get a degree that is now barely considered an entry requirement for a job that pays little above minimum wage. And that entry level job, it now demands 3 to 5 years of prior experience. It pays a salary that doesn't even cover the rent for a studio apartment in a major city, and the actual tasks you are doing are at risk of being automated by AI within the next 3 years anyway. You're being sold a ticket to a ride that has already been dismantled and sold for scrap. If I was 20 today, I would stop beating myself up for not being on the path, because the path is a ghost. I would, as quickly as I could, accept that being priced out of the housing market is not a personal moral failing. It is the result of decades of disastrous economic policy, engineered housing shortages, and massive investment firms buying up single family homes to rent them back to us at a premium. You didn't miss out on buying a house because you bought a nice coffee in Starbucks or because you pay for a Spotify subscription. You missed out because you were born in the wrong decade. Once you accept that these societal milestones are a complete illusion, a massive psychological weight just falls off your shoulders. You stop performing for a phantom audience. You stop feeling this suffocating shame for living at home with your parents, or for renting a cramped apartment with 3 roommates, or for not having a fully funded retirement portfolio before your brain has even finished developing. If there's one lie that has completely ruined the mental health of our generation, it is the concept of the dream job. We've been sold this romanticized idea that if you just do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. It is a Trojan horse scam designed to make you accept lower pay, terrible hours, and zero boundaries. In this economy, turning your passion into your career usually just means you are going to commodify the one thing that brings you genuine joy until you despise it. You take your art, your writing, your coding, your empathy, and you feed it into a money meat grinder until it no longer becomes fun or satisfying to do. If I was 20 in 2026, I would look at a job exactly as it is: a financial transaction. I trade my time, my physical energy, and my skills for a specific amount of money so that I can buy food and sleep indoors. That's it. That is where the buck stops, and that's where the relationship ends. I would absolutely refuse to tie my self-worth to a job title. I wouldn't bend over backwards, skip my lunch breaks, and sacrifice my mental health for a company that would have my job posting listed online before my obituary was even published if I drop dead tomorrow. The rat race is a trap. The people running the maze want you to think that if you just run a little faster, if you wake up at 4 a.m. and crank out some emails early and stay late past 6 p.m, you'll eventually reach the cheese. But there is no cheese, man. There's just more maze. The finish line just gets moved back another 5 miles every time you get close. I would find a job that I could tolerate, that pays my bills, and that completely evacuates my brain the second I clock out and put the key into my car's ignition. I would also embrace being profoundly unperceived. And this ties directly into the digital exhaustion that is absolutely destroying people your age. If I was 20 right now, I would do my best to change with how I interact with the internet. When I was 20, social media was already bad, but it wasn't this perfectly optimized, AI-driven slot machine that it is today. You are currently coming of age in an era where thousands of the smartest engineers in the world are paid millions of dollars to keep your retinas glued to a screen. They want you scrolling. They want you constantly comparing your mundane behind-the-scenes reality to the heavily edited, artificially generated highlight reels of 8 billion other people. Think about how biologically unnatural this is. Human beings were not designed to process the opinions, the tragedies, and the filtered successes of the entire global population every single day. We were meant to know 50 people in a local village. Now you open your phone and you are bombarded with clips of 21-year-old millionaires flexing leased Lamborghinis and sports cars in Dubai. Fitness influencers with chiseled physiques screaming at us to go to the gym and rolling updates of whatever the local latest global disaster is. Of course you're exhausted. Your nervous system is always on alert because of this. If I was 20, I would completely stop treating my existence like a personal brand. This is one of the sickest things modern society has done to young people. It has convinced you that you need to be marketable, that your hobbies need to be side hustles, that your passing thoughts need to be monetized content, that your downtime needs to be optimized for max productivity. I'd delete the apps that would make me feel like I'm falling behind. I'd stop performing my life for an algorithm that does not care if I live or die. I would pursue the full luxury of being unperceived. I would go back to doing things just for the sake of doing them. I would take a terrible photo of my dog and just keep it on my camera roll for myself. I'd play a video game on easy mode just to wander around the map without trying to stream it or clip my highlights for TikTok. I would protect my peace by becoming digitally invisible. Another thing I would do is I would prioritize community over networking. Here is the beautiful, brutal truth about the optimize everything hustle culture. It is designed to isolate you. It teaches you to view every interaction as a networking opportunity. It teaches you to view every moment of rest as wasted time. It teaches you to view your peers as competition. And when you combine that mindset with an economy that has priced us out of existing in public spaces, you get exactly what we have right now: an epidemic of crushing loneliness. The system wants you isolated in your expensive tiny apartment, ordering food through an app, entertaining yourself through a screen, and never talking to your neighbours. An isolated population is a profitable population. When you are lonely and burnt out, you buy things to feel better. You pay for convenience. You consume more. If I could go back to being 20, knowing now what I know at 28, I would prioritize real, physical, offline human connection over absolutely everything else. I wouldn't worry about building a network of professional contacts. I would worry about building a tribe. And rebelling against this isolation doesn't mean you need to spend money you don't have. It means doing something as simple as going for a walk with a friend without looking at our phones. It means sitting in a park and just existing. It means inviting someone over to sit on your couch and do nothing together without feeling the pressure to spend $50 on overpriced drinks at a bar. When you were 20, you need people who will anchor you to reality. You need people who will look at you when you are panicking about not having a 5-year plan and remind you that nobody has a plan that actually works out the way they thought it would. I would also let go of this incessant urgency we all feel. When you are 20, society conditions you to feel this frantic urgency. You feel like the cement of your life is already drying. You feel like if you don't get yourself into the absolute perfect position right now, if you don't pick the exact right major, land the exact right internship, meet the exact right person, you are going to be left behind. You look at turning 30 like it's a death sentence. But I'm telling you, from the other side of that panic, being 20 is literally nothing. You're barely out of the tutorial. Your brain hasn't even finished developing before its prefrontal cortex yet. That comes at 25. You've barely been an adult for 24 months, yet you are holding yourself to the standards of fully fledged, middle-aged men who grew up in an economy where a part-time summer job could pay for a year of college tuition and a down payment on a car. You are trying to survive in a 2026 reality with a 1996 rulebook. It's impossible. Stop holding yourself accountable for a macroeconomic collapse you didn't cause. Stop blaming yourself for being exhausted in a world that demands 110% of your energy just to tread water. Stop internalizing the current economic state as your own personal shortcomings. If I was 20 again, I would just forgive myself. I'd look at my messy room, I'd look at my empty bank account, I would look at my total lack of a 5-year plan, and I would take a deep breath. I would say aloud to myself, I am surviving the best I can, and the fact that I'm still here, still trying, still getting out of bed is enough. You do not need to be a millionaire by 25. You do not need to have an investment portfolio. Do start one if you want though. You just don't have to have one. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. to conquer the day and take an ice bath. And you definitely don't need to have your entire life figured out. Just protect your peace. Just find small, quiet moments of joy that can't be monetized. Hold on to the people you care about and lower the expectations that this rigged society has placed on your shoulders. Your 20s are not for building an empire. They're for making mistakes. They are for changing your mind. They are for being broke, getting your heart broken, and trying on different versions of yourself until you find one that actually fits. They are for figuring out who you actually are when you finally stop listening to the deafening noise of the internet. If you were 20 right now, logging off a shift or staring at a ceiling in the dark, feeling that heavy, cynical weight in your chest, I see you. I get it. I was you. The game is trash. The servers are lagging, the economy is broken, and the devs aren't releasing any patches to fix it. But you don't have to play it the way they want you to. You can just opt out of the pressure. Take the expectations, the milestones, the hustle culture, the urgency, and just drop it. Walk away from it. It is not yours to carry. You are doing fine. You are right where you are supposed to be. Take it easy on yourself today. Get some actual unoptimized rest. Tomorrow is just another day and you don't have to conquer it. You just have to live it. Until the next one, see you then.